Better now? You suffer for 3 months.
Better, yeah. Not quite 100%, but 95%. I still get tired very quickly.
Yeah.
So
But this hepatitis, isn't it?
yeah, but I was lucky. It was hepatitis A, the milder one.
Milder one was 3 months and still going.
Yeah. But you get over it at least.
Yes.
And there's no permanent damage to the liver as well.
Yes, Ragi, go ahead.
So
When did you first come here?
2004, February 27th.
Oh, I see. Has it been so bad that you can't forget the date?
Yeah, it's been traumatic.
Yeah, traumatic, yes, I see. Can you tell me something what happened in these 4 years?
Yeah. I came to you because I'd been a meditator for many years,
I see.
and then something happened.
Why?
Why was I meditating?
Why were you?
Suffering, lots of suffering. Nothing was making me happy.
I-
Work or relationships or
I
money and all the rest of it.
I see,
Questions from a young age,
Yes,
like a lot of people. And then through meditation, I discovered I suppose the impermanence of everything.
I see. Any particular type of
I
meditation?
started with Vipassana, but then I went on to sort of sample lots of different techniques.
I understand, yes.
And I had some good teachers.
I'm
some
sorry?
monks. I had some good teachers, some monks,
I see.
monks in Sri Lanka.
I see. Different types of. All you mean for Vipassana?
No, they were Buddhist monks, but they encouraged me to try out different techniques,
I see.
not just Vipassana.
I see.
So through that, on a retreat on one occasion, and I'd already come across you in a book, in a magazine, a voice in the middle of the night told me to come and see you. And the voice gave me these dates. Come to Bombay on the 26th, meet him on the 27th.
Really?
Yeah.
Specific dates.
I told you this story once, but it was so long ago. And when I asked you, well, if the voice was not the voice of God, it must have been your voice, you said no. And then I was kind of a bit bemused, and I said, well, then it was my voice, and you said yes. And then it dawned on me that my voice and your voice and the voice of God were all about one voice. And that was the first time I came to see you, the first 2 months.
I see.
And since then it's been a fascinating journey. It's been painful, it's been pleasurable, it's been ecstatic, it's been everything.
So can you describe that a little bit?
For 2 years there was a bit of a desert. Once the illusion was seen for the illusion,
Yeah.
there was a kind of a meaninglessness to it all. And the
Yeah.
questioning of the I, whenever the I came up as a thought, who was this entity? So there was a kind of a desperation there, and a meaninglessness for about 2 years. I didn't work very much.
I see.
I drifted around a lot. I came to see you regularly. And I just didn't want to do anything really. Life didn't seem to matter, didn't have any meaning. Interspersed with moments of pleasure, of course. There was always
I
these
understand.
extremes of pleasure and pain.
Yes.
But there was a general kind of meaninglessness.
Now, this pleasure and pain has been all your life.
Yes.
So in what way was this pleasure and pain during these 2 years different from pleasure and pain?
I think, as you've said, the extremes, you become more sensitive. So the extremes are more extreme.
I see.
Although you're witnessing it,
Yeah.
somehow it seems more extreme.
I see. Yeah.
And I liked your differentiation yesterday between witnessing and observing. That clarified something for me. That was very important.
It clarified something for you yesterday?
Yes, because for me it's constantly the terminology that I find interesting, that you're so precise with the terminology.
Yeah.
So when it comes up in the
You see,
mind...
the whole trouble with this, any spirituality, anywhere, Vipassana, Indian, Christian, anything, the trouble is with the terms.
Yeah.
The trouble has always been with the term. The term has never been clearly defined.
Yeah.
The word Atma, you will be amazed at the range for which the same word Atma is used. Ridiculous. How can there not be so much confusion?
Yes.
Therefore, when I say I must be perfectly clear, when I use a term, I must know exactly what I am saying. Therefore, the working mind, thinking mind, observing, witnessing. I want to be very clear. Yes, please, go on.
And I think that's why it's so helpful to the people that come to you, because there is such tremendous precision and clarity, and you cut through things much faster than I think, well, I'm biased than any other teacher, but I think the way you describe it in such clear terms is very, very helpful to clear up the confusion that people have. And that's really a lot of the suffering, the confusion.
That is the suffering, yes, confusion.
So for many years there was...
That is the suffering for the seeker.
Yes.
Confusion.
Yes.
That is why the book came out, you see. Confusion no more.
Yeah.
That was what triggered the happening of that book. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting your train of thought.
I'm happy if you do. What can I say? I mean, there's been everything. There have been periods of missing you terribly, and then not really needing you, but you're always... Initially it was in the mind. When something would come up, there'd be Ramesh's voice saying it was this, this and this, so things would get cut off. And then of course, as the intellectual understanding, as you say, goes deeper, it sinks into the heart, and there's this overwhelming emotional feeling, which just is incredible.
Enormous sense of gratitude.
There's gratitude.
I've been through it. Yeah,
there's an enormous sense of love, an enormous sense of just missing your presence.
Yeah. Right. So now, if you were to describe what that understanding is, how would you do that, Raji? How would you do that?
To be honest, I think I'd let you do it, because I think
that's what I keep doing, morning after morning after morning.
Exactly.
So let the others know what your interpretation of it.
Well, I'll tell you something interesting. Well, it's interesting for me,
Go ahead,
this particular entity.
Yeah.
Recently, there's been a kind of a loneliness in the absence of being able to talk to God, because every time something comes up vis-a-vis God, I used to always talk to God. Many people talk to God. Whatever the form of God you believe in, whatever your concept of God. So now when these thoughts come up, they get cut off by the fact that my understanding is that there is no God. There's no God as a separate entity that I can talk to.
That is the point. There is no God as a separate entity to whom you can talk.
So for me that's become an interesting dialogue, because it's a dialogue with oneself.
Now what is the interesting point this fact leads to?
Well, for me it leads...
This fact that there is no God and me separate to talk to. That interesting fact leads to the ultimate understanding. What is the ultimate understanding this fact leads to?
Can I just read out a quote? Can I read out a quote which I think will summarize this quite beautifully?
Go ahead.
Can I take a net of jewels, please, Dorothy? And I came across this yesterday, and I think this suddenly for me summarized it absolutely beautifully. And it's the first one in a net of jewels.
Yeah.
So January the 1st. The universe is uncaused, like a net of jewels, in which each is only the reflection of all the others in a fantastic, interrelated harmony without end.
Yes, but this point, that there is no God as a separate entity with whom you can talk, that point leads to the really ultimate understanding that as a separate entity, wanting to be God or wanting to know God is impossible. And that is the point. Therefore, in the Ashtavakra Gita, towards the end of the thing, Ashtavakra says, only the immature minds, who as a separate entity want to be one with God or to know God or to know. That is the whole point. that you and the source are not two separate entities. More important, the source cannot be an entity. See what I mean? Source cannot be an entity. And whatever religion, whatever it says, thinks of God, they think of God, religion thinks of God as a separate entity. My quarrel with religion is, every religion considers God as a separate entity. You have no power, you are a powerless entity, and the God is omnipresent, everything. God is the most powerful entity. That is what the religion tells. God is the most powerful entity. Therefore, bow down to Him, send prayers to Him. Isn't that what every religion says? That is the whole trouble. God is not a separate entity with whom, as an ultimate happiness, you can be one with God. That is, you cannot speak to God because God is not a separate entity. Same point carried to its extreme means that you can never ever have your spiritual aim to be one with God. More important, if I am one with God, then who is one with God? That is the point. I want to be one with God. If I am one with God, who is then one with God? If a river joins the ocean, where is the river? They become the ocean. And that is precisely what happens in the case of the human being. What is the human being? An ego. Ego is the impersonal consciousness, the source, identified with a particular name and form, body, mind, organism and the name, as a separate entity with a sense of personal doership. In other words, every entity, every ego is identified consciousness, identified source, identified consciousness as an ego. And so long as the body, mind, organism is alive, the ego has to be there to live his life, either as a separate entity with doership or as a sage. As a separate entity but without doership. That is what the sage is. So when the sage does it, does exactly what he wants to do in any situation. Witnessing whatever happens as a happening which had to happen according to God's will, cosmic law, not according to his will. So that is the sage, who continues to be an ego. So my point is, even the sage with the highest understanding, Ramana Maharshi lived for 50 years in the ashram as Ramana Maharshi, a separate entity to whom people came and wanted to see and talk. Therefore Ramana Maharshi lived for 50 years as a separate entity, the ego. Therefore, so long as the body, mind, organism is alive, the ego as a separate entity has to be there, with or without the sense of personal doership. So when does the river become the ocean? When the body is dead and the ego as identified consciousness as a separate entity is no longer needed in this drama of life. So once the body is dead, the ego as a separate entity, identified consciousness is not needed, and the identification becomes one with God, one with the source. The identified consciousness becomes impersonal consciousness. Strictly, the identification gets dissolved. That is the whole story. Therefore, there is no question of one entity becoming. That's why the Ashtavakra says, immature minds, those seekers with immature minds, who still think in terms of me and God. And curiously, it's interesting, Mother Teresa confessed that she was dying a frustrated soul, because in the words of Ashtavakra, she was a seeker with an immature mind, because she couldn't find God. God didn't talk to her. Her confession. I think her last confession with whoever the person in the church, her confession. I'm frustrated because God doesn't talk to me. Meaning, and little deeper, God doesn't talk to me in spite of all the wonderful work I have done. See what I mean? In spite of all the wonderful work I have done, God doesn't deign to talk with me. All my wonderful work has been wasted. See what I mean? So when I read that, tears came to my eyes. What a shame. Doing all that work, still thinking, I am doing this wonderful work for God. I am doing this wonderful work for God. Therefore, God must do me the favor of talking to me. That is why, seekers with immature minds, seekers with immature minds. Murti, the Ashtavakra Gita Dhyana. I read you the exact those with an immature intellect may believe that the Atman is pure and without a second. Yet they want to experience the Atman phenomenally as an independent entry. Therefore, they continue to be unhappy as long as they live. They continue to be frustrated as long as they live. And that is what happened to Mother Teresa. Therefore, talking, that's the interesting point. So, carry on.
What to say? You say it all the time, every day. I think when the questions,
All right, let's.
one of the things that happens is you
now
answer
tell
all
me,
my
what do you
other
understand?
questions.
What do you understand about anger? Raji, what do you understand?
For me, there are two forms of anger.
Yes.
There's an anger which is impersonal,
Yeah.
it just arises and passes. And it could be the same situation with the same event or person. It arises and passes. There's no attachment, there's no involvement. It's not personal. And then there's an anger which one gets involved in. And then there's judging and blaming in the story that starts and continues, and it has a duration in time. For me, there are those two sorts of anger.
So, are these different types of anger?
No.
Are they different types of anger?
No, they're not. For me, they're characterized by the fact that one gets involved in, and the other one doesn't get involved in.
Curiously, just this morning, I keep jotting these things down. Many years, a small book came out, Meaningful Trivialities from the Source. So these things, they continue to happen.
Yeah.
This morning, I wrote, मूर्ती मी बसतो तिथे लिहिलेलं आहे मला एक पॅड आहे ते घेऊन या ना आय ॲक्च्युली रीड आउट व्हॉट हॅपन बिकॉज व्हॉट आय रीड व्हॉट आय से नाव विल बी व्हॉट आय से what I jotted down.
Yes.
what I jotted. Fact of them, that's why I say it.
That's another interesting point. I think it happens to a lot of people that suddenly something will come and you'll jot it down and then you read it again later and it appears that you don't understand where it's come from.
And that's what Albert Einstein said.
Correct.
The equation came to him. Yes. So what I said is, how can I get angry with anyone or anything when I know for a fact that everything happens according to God's will or cosmic law, and that it is not possible for any human being to do any deed? How can I get angry with anyone or anything when I know for a fact that everything happens according to God's will or cosmic law, and that it is not possible for any human being to do any deed? But at the same time, I cannot prevent anger from arising in a body-mind organism as a biological reaction. What I can do is witness it as a happening in a body-mind organism and not get involved in it as my anger, as me being angry.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
So this really is what is the usual problem. I know I'm not getting, I know it is biological, but it happens,
Yeah.
and I get angry.
So what's very useful I found in those situations is what you say about not getting involved in the involvement.
That is the point.
Because once you have the intellectual understanding, then even with that, sometimes there's a judgment that I'm getting angry. I shouldn't be angry because I know this person and myself are one. Therefore, who am I getting angry at?
Yeah.
So when you, well, I found anyway that when your words come back to me, then the judgment that's there about me getting angry when I shouldn't doesn't matter anymore. That I find interesting, that witnessing of the involvement, not getting involved in the involvement. And that's something that's clearly in time, as you say.
It's a
process
process
in time.
It's a process in time.
Yeah. Something happened to me recently which was quite interesting. I was working with somebody who was a friend.
Yeah.
And it's always a bit delicate when you're working with friends because there are also still roles that one plays. So I was the boss and she was my assistant, but we were friends.
Yeah.
So at times I'd be the boss, at times I'd be the friend, and I'd listen to all her troubles, and these roles are always blurred. And suddenly one day, just a couple of weeks ago, it all went terribly wrong. She got very upset, she stormed out and didn't come back. And I was wondering what had actually happened.
Where was this?
This was in Mysore. I was working on an architectural project.
Oh, in Mysore you were working on an architectural project.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah. So
I immediately thought, well, it must have been something that was happening in her life, which she had brought into the workplace, and then she'd expressed it, so it wasn't necessarily related to me. And then I discovered that it actually was related to me, that she had a lot of resentment which had built up over things that had not been said, basically. And she was unhappy with this blurring of the roles. At one minute I was her boss, next minute I was her friend, etc. She found that frustrating, as well as her own frustrations. And I found it quite difficult in a way to handle, because although I was sympathetic, it was just clearly something that was just happening in the moment, and then we should see it as that and kind of get over it. So there was a bit of I think a harshness which was there. And I find that interesting also with the teaching, that sometimes it's so clear, it's so simple, that you just say, okay, it's happened, let's get over it now and let's move on. It becomes impersonal. At one level it's just impersonal. It's two entities, something happened, okay, now let's move on. But she wanted to hang on to it and blame me for something that I felt had not happened. And my reaction was to was to argue against that blame. In the moment I was upset. So my emotions got exacerbated and we argued. And I regret it because now the friendship has been lost. Although I see that as something that was meant to happen for both of us, it was our destiny, etc., etc., it was still something that happened, and it's now difficult to reconcile. And I did find that part of me was also had an expectation that she would realize this, that she would then say, okay, I'm sorry that I overreacted, there was something else I brought into the situation which was unrelated, etc., etc. There was an expectation. And I found that interesting because I didn't think that would arise. And I think for me that was a clear indication, amongst other events, that the teaching sinks in, the intellectual understanding keeps on going down and down and down, and you feel that it's in your heart, and you feel that it's really, it's who you are and what you are. There's a very clear understanding. But a bit like what you said about the driving license analogy, it's again a process in time. These things still happen, and one has absolutely no control of it. The net result is that it passes more quickly.
Yeah.
The understanding is that it was just meant to happen, so you don't linger on it. There's still sadness that arises because there's a friendship lost. All the same things still happen. But at the same time, there's a almost not, I would say, what comes to mind is a cold impersonality of this was an event that happened, it happened, and now one moves on. And that's where life becomes easier,
Yeah.
as you say. For me, the ease in life is that things happen and you move on very quickly, either instantaneously or in a shorter space of time.
Yeah. But the point here in your narration, you said you argued with her. Why?
I think at that moment, what happened for me is that I'd forgotten the teaching.
Yeah.
I'd completely forgotten the
Yeah.
teaching. I was in the moment, I was upset.
Yeah.
30 seconds later, a minute later when she'd left, I'd
You
remembered.
realized, yeah.
I'd remembered the teaching.
Yeah. And you could have said that, you could have explained, but you didn't.
No, I said to her, this is a professional issue. It's not personal for me.
Yeah. But she was not prepared to.
So she admitted that she takes things personally. And she
Yeah.
couldn't separate what was professional and what was personal.
Yes. Yes. That's the point. We have to witness our own personal daily living and see how the teaching fits in with that.
Then another thing came up, which is why I wanted
Please.
to talk to you this morning, and I find it extremely mundane, but I so enjoy sitting in front of you, and I don't come very often these days that I'm being very selfish, so forgive me. I'm just enjoying the time in front of you. And as I said to you last time, I don't know what I'll do.
I'm sorry?
As I said to you last time,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'll do when that opportunity is not there anymore, to be able to come and sit with you.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I don't know what I'll do
Yeah.
when the opportunity is not there anymore to come and sit with you in person. So I'm enjoying it at the moment.
Look, I'll tell you what. You enjoy a piece of music.
Yes.
You have been, before going to bed, you have been putting the CD on for months. Then something happened. The CD is broken. You can't get another CD. What will you do? Carry on without the music. But the
I suppose
advantage...
the difference is I don't see you as a CD.
Yes, but there is a difference, and difference is you can have one of these DVDs. Okay? Okay, I'm not joking. You have the DVD on. And it's like, honestly, it's like being there again.
Yeah.
It's being there. Or picking up a book and reading it.
Yeah.
Picking up a book and reading it.
So you asked me what had happened in the 4 years, and what has also happened is this feeling of presence, of your presence, of the Guru's presence, the relationship between
that is the
the
advantage
disciple
which
and
the
the Guru.
DVD has provided with the earlier one. The presence is there.
Yes. So the presence is always there. The presence is always there in the heart.
Yes.
What the difference is that in those moments of longing and missing,
Yes.
it is really quite extraordinary. It is like nothing else. It is spontaneous, and sometimes I just
Yes.
I break down.
Yes. But
At those
even
moments.
so, that is, let's say, let's give it the proper name. It's pain in the moment.
Yes, I suppose it's pain
Missing
in the moment. Yeah.
ultimately, what is it? Pain in the moment.
Yeah. I wouldn't
You have
call
to
it, for me,
accept that.
I don't see that as pain. I mean, it's obviously uncomfortable when you start
So,
crying and you have that emotion.
No, that discomfort is another synonym for pain.
Yes, but it's a feeling of tremendous
Discomfort,
gratitude.
pain, broad, pleasure and pain.
Right.
Pain includes various. Discomfort is another name for pain.
Right.
You can call it discomfort. Discomfort again, like pain, can be physical or mental.
Yeah.
But it goes under the broad distinction between pleasure and pain. Pleasure again, or pain, can be physical or psychological. So various, but ultimately everything can be separated into broad pleasure or pain in the moment, which no one can avoid. You have to accept it.
Yeah. Sweet pain.
Parting is such sweet sorrow. He's a clever fellow, Shakespeare. Parting is such sweet sorrow. I don't know where he says it, but it's stuck in my mind.
Yeah.
Parting is such sweet sorrow. So,
what's arisen recently is I've been involved in architecture for nearly 20 years.
yeah. I mean, you're a professional
I'm a professional
architect.
architect. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a practice for many years, and I gave that up about 6-7 years ago, and I've been freelancing. And one of the themes that's always interested me, and I've been actively involved, is sustainability.
I'm sorry?
Sustainability, sustainable development,
How do you mean?
environmentally friendly design, green buildings, energy efficient buildings,
I see.
resource efficient buildings. So this was something I started as a student, and I've continued into my professional life. And I used to campaign for greener cities and greener buildings,
Yes,
energy efficient
yes.
buildings, all this kind of thing,
Yeah.
for 15 years or so. And then I suppose 6-7 years ago, when I gave up my practice, I stopped all that overnight, and I've done very little in that field. And one of the things that comes with the realization,
But
the
there,
understanding,
in this field that you're saying, what precisely did you think you could do?
well, precisely in any country, about
Yeah.
half the electricity that's used
Yeah.
is used by buildings. So if you reduce the amount of electricity that buildings use, you need to generate less electricity. And primarily we're using fossil fuels, etc., etc., etc. So there's a direct correlation between how much energy a building
Agreed.
uses and
Agreed.
the environment.
Agreed.
So it's all about saving the environment, the
I
natural
know, but
environment.
what did you think Ragi could do?
Yes, so previously, I used to believe that we could save the environment in some way. We could save our impact, we could reduce our impact on the natural environment. This is what environmentalists do. So I wasn't an environmentalist, but I was trying to do my bit in my area of specialization. So what happened is after meeting you and having all my questions answered, there was no longer any desire to change anything, to change the world or anybody around me or anything at all. There was a total acceptance of the way things were, just being the way things were. And I love your story about the amoeba. No, sorry, not the amoeba, the smallpox virus. Smallpox virus, and I remember that.
What is that? I've forgotten.
Well, when people used to ask you about the destruction of the planet, where the planet is going, what human beings are doing for the planet,
Yes.
and the possible extinction of the human race, you used to basically say, well, did anybody think of the smallpox virus when the smallpox virus was basically eliminated? Nobody thought of the poor smallpox virus. And I think on one
Ah.
occasion you said the poor
Yes,
smallpox virus.
yes.
And I had this vision of the poor smallpox virus disappearing into extinction, and nobody crying for the smallpox virus. That was quite sad. Well, it brought a tear to my eye. No, I'm just kidding. And so for me, then, the whole notion that the human being had to somehow save itself or save the planet became completely irrelevant in the grander scheme of things.
Yeah. More important, Raji, there are quite a few social activists. They do work which, and Mother Teresa becomes part of that. So whatever work that is being done, I'm not saying that their work is wasted, that they should not, I'm not saying it. What I'm saying is, Ragi should not stop doing whatever he was doing to make such improvement as he thinks he could make.
So this is what I'm finding interesting now.
So
is that
you-
the desire isn't there.
But still you continue to do
Yes,
what your heart tells you to do
yes,
in a given situation,
yeah.
with the understanding what happens has never ever been in anyone's control.
Correct.
Therefore you do whatever you think you could do.
And that's very liberating,
It is.
because then there's no attachment to the result.
And that is precisely what I'm saying about Mother Teresa.
But I'll tell you what troubles me a little at the moment, and it's a selfish concern, is that in certain situations you have to play the game in a different way. Now for me, life has become a bit like what you describe as the Mahabhogi experience, which is that you enjoy things thoroughly, or you just accept it for what it is. But in the playing of the game, or the acting on the stage, you take on the role.
Yeah.
And sometimes that role means you have to wear a certain costume, you have a number of lines, there might be a
Indeed.
fighting scene,
Yeah.
the crying scene, etc.
Yeah.
So you play that role as if you really were in those situations.
In that situation you play that role. Therefore you do precisely what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
In the two-hour play, during those 2 hours, the actor does precisely what he is supposed to do to be a good actor.
Yes.
But while he is playing the role of a king, if he keeps remembering he is only a bloody
Yeah.
pauper,
That's
what
right.
kind of an actor will he be?
Yeah.
See what I mean?
So I've been offered a role in
Yeah.
this movie of life.
So
That's why I want to talk to you, because I
yes.
enjoy asking
The-
you these things.
I know, but my answer is, by all means, accept that role. But you are having accepted that role, will your acceptance become effective or not?
Yes.
No one can guarantee. You could accept it and it may not happen.
Yes.
So at the moment, accept it by all means.
It may not happen, that's true.
And
yes.
then go with whatever happens.
Yeah.
By all means, if it's an attractive thing, by all means accept it. But whatever happens later, you accept it.
So this is what
No
has changed.
expectation. That is the point.
No expectation. That's right. And you asked me what's happened in the last 4 years, and I think this is one of the most significant things that's happened. All those things, those concerns, those aspirations, those ambitions, those desires, they're just not there anymore.
Yeah. And that really, whenever one gets really angry or anguished, if only the thought would come, does it matter? Does it really matter? That's all it needs. Does it matter? Does it really matter?
Yes. So that comes up, and then if I go with that, then I'm not going to take the role because it doesn't really matter.
Ultimately, therefore I say, whether you may accept the role,
Yeah.
but you may not get it.
Yeah. But the same thought, in another moment, with a different mood or different feeling at a different time translates into take the role, it doesn't matter. It's the same
That's the
thing.
point. That's the point.
Either way, it doesn't matter.
Now you got it. Now you got it. Either way, it doesn't matter. Therefore, take the role.
Now that's interesting. You see, you're saying either way it doesn't matter, therefore take the role. Somebody
Yeah.
else would say it doesn't matter either way, therefore don't take the role.
So don't take the role. In other words, my point is, in a given situation, for the mechanism of daily living to happen, Ragi has to make a decision. The decision may be to accept it or not to accept it,
Yeah.
or not to refuse it, but wait and see what happens.
Yeah. And that was the first of many bits of advice you gave me, and it's always a similar bit of advice. Wait and see what happens.
Wait and see what happens. Some of the things are so accurate. Wait and see what happens. It doesn't matter. Does it really matter?
Can I elaborate on that?
Please.
When I first spoke to you from Sri Lanka, before I'd met you, and I'd had the voice say, come and see you, I called you, and I told you what had happened in the voice and how it had told me to come and see you. And all you said was, wait and see what happens. And what was really interesting is I had 2 tickets booked, one to Thailand, one to come here, and there were 2 parallel stories that could have developed. And you said wait and see what happens. And in the waiting, what always happens, and I've noticed this from then, is any of those desires, those longings, those personal feelings of involvement in the situation dissipate.
Yeah.
And then when it does actually happen, you're actually relatively free from any involvement in the outcome or expectation of what might or might not happen.
Something which happened many years ago, maybe 10 years, maybe. My sister-in-law, her brother started it, manufacturing certain kind of meters. And he was, the other meter. But he was a perfectionist. He had a meter which was far and away better than most. But he still wanted to better even that. So his brain was all towards bettering the instrument. So he needed someone to market the ready thing. So my sister-in-law took up and started marketing it. And the Atomic Energy Commission was one of her customers. So she went and saw someone. She used to have to go and see someone, an official in the Atomic Energy Commission. So they became, and his wife. So she became quite friendly with the wife of this Atomic Energy Commission. And he suddenly got the idea, brainwave. He wanted to give up the job and go and join an ashram in Karnataka, way down in the south. You see? But in the meantime, again what happened? Instead of going there, he had a heart attack and he died. So he went to a real ashram. So my sister-in-law went to her and she said, now you'll probably have to vacate the house. So what will you do? 10 years. Ordinary person, ordinary person, with just that intuition. Her answer was, Melanie, something always happens. Isn't that fantastic? Something always happens. Therefore, something will happen. That's the third one. What does it matter? Who cares? Something always happens. The problem happens when I want something other than what happens. That is the problem. I want something other than what happens. So if I am able to accept totally whatever is at any moment, anywhere in the world, is precisely the way it is supposed to be. In other words, accept whatever and something always, I've never forgotten her. And she's an ordinary person. But look at her innate, intuitive acceptance. Something always happens. What she meant is, of course, something always happens, which is supposed to happen. What can anyone do? Something always happens. Let it happen. And again, I still say, let it happen. But nothing stops you in that situation from doing anything you want to do to improve your position physically, mentally, temperamentally or financially. Nothing stops you from doing whatever you feel like doing. But the result of it has never ever been in your control. Therefore, in any given situation, without hesitation, do whatever you feel like doing, without any expectation. If you have an expectation, you are inviting frustration. But that doesn't stop, again and again, doesn't stop you from doing whatever you feel like doing in any situation. That is important. And truly, that is the core of the Bhagavad Gita. Do whatever you have to do. Do it as well as you can, without expectation. And that is amazing, an amazing example of that I saw. When my wife and I, some years ago, we witnessed on the TV the tennis match between the Russian young man, Safin Marin Safin, against the American champion. He was ranked 147. This American champion was the champion, number one. So in his half, this Russian, every match was a hard-fought match. But he came into the final. The other half, the champion slaughtered his and came to the final. So we watched that final. And the champion lost. This ranked 147, total rank outsider. The bookies would have given any odds you wanted if you wanted to back the challenger. The champion lost, the challenger won. So at the end of the night, they went to this champion and he said, what happened? And he said only one thing. Today, no one on earth could have beaten the young Russian, Sapana. Nobody could have beaten him. That's it. So they went to this young man and said, what was your strategy? What was your strategy to beat the champion? And the Russian said, are you crazy? You expected me to beat the champion? You expected me to have a strategy? And he said, no, I never expected to beat the champion. I never expected to win. I had decided only on one thing. And he said, when the ball comes to my court, I will return it. That is all I decided. When the ball comes in I will return it. And that's what I kept on doing. Without thinking of the game, without thinking of the set, without thinking of the match. All I did was kept returning it. But when we saw the match, what we saw was the champion would hit a winner. Champion would hit a stroke on the other hand, and he hits the ball there. And he knows it's a winner. But that man starts running long and returns it. So when the ball comes back, the champion is absolutely stunned. He never expected the ball to come back. And he said that all I kept on doing, returning the ball to the other court. And then he said, he was stunned. And then suddenly I realized I had won. So at that moment I told my wife, this is precisely what the Bhagavad Gita says. I told my wife, this is precisely, while doing your duty, instead of concentrating on your duty, if you keep expecting your Arjuna, your fighting will not be enough and you will be killed. Therefore, concentrate on with a view to win. Fight to win. Fight to kill. But don't think you have killed. I have already killed them as time. So don't worry about killing them. Kill them. But do your duty to the best of your ability. So I remember I told her, this is she couldn't know what am I talking. This tennis match and Bhagavad Gita. She didn't even bother to ask me what I meant. Isn't it funny? Bhagavad Gita, and here this tennis game.
Can I elaborate on that idea of duty? Because that's Arjuna's problem, in a way, isn't it? He doesn't want that duty. And he's been told, well, it's already been decided. So just do it and don't worry about it.
Yes, but then also, therefore he tells Arjuna, you may decide not to fight, but nonetheless you will fight because it has been predetermined that you will fight and win. You may decide not to fight, but you will fight. Okay. Anything else?
No, it was this idea of duty that's troubling me.
Now, duty, very simple, Ravi, no problem. In a given situation, do whatever you feel like doing, whether as a duty or as a passion. First, whether it happens or not in your control. If it happens, the result of it, not in your control. Consequences of that result, not in your control. So the result and the consequence together, Lord Krishna sums up as fruits of your action. You have the total right of action, but you have no right over the fruits of your action. Fruits of your action mean the result of your action and the consequence of that action, which is what the society considers your doing or my doing. Everybody is experiencing. I've done whatever I wanted. The result of it, whether I get what I want, I sometimes have got what I want, sometimes have not got what I want, and sometimes what I got was beyond expectation. Which of the three happened? No one has ever had any control. And yet, what is everybody's experience? The society in which I live cannot know what I have done. Society can only accept what has happened, one of three things over which I have no control, as my action. Judge it as good or bad according to existing social regulations and legal provision, and reward me or punish me. Reward means pleasure, punishment means pain, and that is daily living. I am free to do whatever I want. So is the psychopath and the criminal. Has the right of action to do whatever he wants. But none of us can know whether what we have done will bring pleasure or pain. Everybody is doing whatever in order to get pleasure. Whatever anybody does in a given situation is with the expectation of pleasure. But no one has ever in the world known, having done whatever you felt like doing as a duty or as a passion or anything, or doing something perversely what you think you shouldn't do. Either way, duty or the other one. Whether that results in pleasure or pain, no one has known.
And one doesn't have to feel guilty about it either.
That is the point. I have not done my duty.
See, this is often what people say when you're offered something, when you're offered a role which is really, quite amazing. They say, take it, it's a great opportunity, this will be a fantastic opportunity for you to grow and make money and this, that, and the
So
other,
take it.
help people. Yeah, but then there's also this,
But whether it will bring you the pleasure that is expected or not, or not with pleasure, but even pain, nobody knows.
but what I was going to say is those people, when they're giving that advice, they don't realize that sometimes when the motivation is not there, and that I find is what's happened with the teaching, that the motivation is not the same as it used to be 4 or 5 years ago, 7 years ago in my case. That there isn't that desire.
No, wait a minute. That motivation. What is that motivation? Whatever you are doing, you think you are doing it. Is it real? Who is doing it rather?
No,
The energy,
yes,
primal energy,
correct.
functioning through this body-mind organism,
Yeah.
will produce at any moment precisely what it is supposed to do,
Yeah,
irrespective of your motivation.
right.
Irrespective of your motivation. How many times?
But the decision still has to be made.
On motivation.
This entity has to make the decision. I've never been very good at making big decisions.
So, now there again, some people have the genetic ability to make a correct, not correct, but a specific decision. Whether it turns out right is another matter. But they have the ability, genetic ability, to make a considered decision. So whether because it's a genetic happening, whether the matter is important or not, that person will still make a considered decision. He won't, it's a small matter, let one is. Because it's a genetic, he will still make a considered decision, whether the matter is simple or complicated. On the other hand, someone who does not have this ability to make a decision, and always did it, I don't know, and complained, I can't make a decision. He still has to live his life. And my point is, neither can say who will be the more successful of the two.
Yes.
The one who cannot make a decision, he will toss a coin. And whether the considered decision turns out right, or the spinning of the coin decision turns out right, nobody has ever had any control.
I thought of that last night. I thought of what you said last night about tossing the coin. And then between the time I was in the toilet thinking about it and the time I got into the bedroom, I'd forgotten it. So this is the first time I'm rehearing it, so maybe I'll just toss a coin.
But that's another really. I think I have made the decision. But biology tells me on responsible research, every decision that the mind thinks it has made, that the individual ego thinks it has made, has been made in the brain almost half a second before the ego thinks it's made the decision. Biological research clearly says what I consider my decision was made in the brain almost half a second before I thought it was my decision. Who made the decision in the brain? God did. That is the divine hypnosis.
Yes.
God makes a decision, half a second, and He says, your decision. Ah, yes. My decision. Yes, sir. All right. Yes, Jai.
This is a very important issue for me, because all you shared resonates very much with me about that stage of realizing that everything is an illusion or it's a dream. I think it's natural. There's a natural state that follows comes with lots of meaningless, or considering why should I do that? Is it useful or does it have really a meaning? And sometimes I have a lot of difficulty with decision problems, because every time I come to the point, why should I invest myself, involve myself in this and that? But what you just said, that we cannot lose or miss an opportunity. That means that by not taking a decision, not being involved or doing something, that doesn't mean that maybe you will end up by doing something. Because I feel a lot of guilt by not being involved.
You can, because it's really, you are not doing it. Primal energy functioning through this body-mind organism makes a decision half a second before the ego thinks it's his decision.
Because my process is that I don't take any decision. Lately I haven't been doing only few things. I've invested myself in very few things. Less and less I feel involved in doing things, or even before I had some idealistic ideas about improving this world, this matter, pollution and all that. And I feel that I'm detaching so much about all these issues. And sometimes I feel guilty of missing an opportunity, but you mean that we cannot, if it has to happen, if it's God's will that we'll end up by doing something, we'll do it anyway, even if we choose not to do it.
There is a point, Jaya, which you have missed.
Yeah.
I've done something, I've got what I wanted, I'm happy. But how do I know that the same prize which I have won will not ultimately lend to a loss for me? It doesn't end there. It goes on and on. I'll tell you an actual story that's happened. There was a cloth merchant, very rich, and during my mother's time, and he knew he able to sit right outside. And when a customer came, he knew exactly what the customer, so he would shout to the salesman to show this person that, whatever sarees they were. So when my mother, he would shout, show her this. Good at his work. He made a lot of money. And I'm told at that time, he had made so much money that normally, even in our house, my mother had silver thalis, dinner plate. We had silver thalis. And this person had for himself and his wife gold thalis. He had so much money, they had gold thalis. But his point of unhappiness was, he had 3 daughters. He didn't have a son to carry on anyway, that's it. So he wanted a son to carry on the family business and plan. So he was very unhappy. Then ultimately, He did have a son. After about 10 years after his last daughter, he did have a son. Great rejoicing. Great rejoicing. And do you know what the son did? By the time he was 30, he had run through the whole fortune of the family. The whole fortune of the family was finished. And when this story was told me by one of his sons-in-law, this old man was living with that daughter. He didn't even have a home. So this old man with all that money, the son had finished the whole, for whom they were longing. The son for whom they were longing had finished with their fortune, and the old man was living with his daughter and the daughter's husband. Therefore, when he wanted a son, would he have wanted a son if he knew what the son would do? Therefore, we only look at what we want in the immediate future. But the point is, no one knows. No one knows the whole house. In this movie of life, we can only watch, figure by figure, frame by frame. No one knows. See, if I don't know why bother? Let the movie of life go according to the divine script.
Yes, so Krishna could have said to Arjuna, even if you decide not to fight, you'll end up by fighting if it's your
You'll
destiny.
still fight, because it's your destiny to fight.
Yeah, I feel still a strong sense of guilt is there. For example, when I walk the streets and I see poor people, sometimes I feel if I don't help them, nobody is going to help them. Kind of a sense of responsibility that is deeply infused, conditioned in me.
No, Jaya. What happens when your eyes see the poverty of a particular person, a beggar? What happens? Compassion arises as a biological reaction in this body-mind organism. What does the ego do? The ego witnesses their hand going in his pocket, taking some money out and giving it to him. So what does the ego do? What does Jaya do? He witnesses compassion arising, and the compassion resulting in his giving something to the beggar. Where does Jaya come in? Jaya simply doesn't come into the picture unless the Jaya gets involved in a biological reaction. Jaya gets involved in a biological reaction. And if Jaya happens to be a miser, again because of genetic conditioning, he will say, well, I help one beggar, there are thousands of beggars, how are they going to help? Therefore I may as well keep my money for myself.
Yeah,
The miser is happy.
or what's happened in that specific situation is that I just realized that the thought that comes is, in that dream anyway, what's that emotional impulse to give something, because in fact that's just an illusion. So I'm just questioning myself after, was it real what I did? That emotion stuff.
That is the involvement of the ego, Jaya. That is an involvement of the ego. Why get involved? Why not witness compassion arising and taking its course?
Yeah, without questioning it, or is it real?
Without getting involved in the biological reaction. Now, wait a minute.
Because I feel that
wait a minute. Therefore, you don't get involved, and your compassion makes you take out your wallet, and then you suddenly realize you have forgotten your wallet. So it is the destiny of the beggar not to get any money from Jaya. You don't have to feel sorry, you don't have to feel guilty that the beggar you couldn't give anything to the beggar. In other words, let the biological reaction take its course.
So even if after that there's the idea that it's just a dream, and again I got involved in
wait a
emotion
minute, wait a minute.
things.
If you truly accept everything is a dream,
Yeah.
where is the question of you are doing anything, Jaya?
Yeah, I'm not at that
If it is a
stage.
dream,
Yeah.
and a dream is something you can only witness, therefore keep witnessing this dream. Where is the problem?
I'm not being involved in the thinking after the action.
That is the point. And that is the thinking mind.
Yeah, and that also means that if I don't do it, if I decide not to do something, that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Maybe I will
That's
end up
right.
by
Still
being forced
doing
to do it.
You may
so,
decide not to do it and you'll still find doing it.
so, for example, if I have by taking the decision, for example, I think in this situation I made a wrong decision. I missed an opportunity. If I'm destined to have that opportunity, it will happen to me anyway.
Yeah. Therefore, something always happens.
Yeah.
Now, whether that happening is going to help me or hurt me has never been in my control. I have to accept. I have to accept the happening and its result without either blaming or condemning myself or without congratulating myself. It's a happening according to a divine script. Okay.
Yeah.
Simple, isn't it?
Can I make a comment about that? What you just said
Please.
about this when
Yes,
you
Raju,
when
go ahead.
you're seeing that as an illusion,
Go ahead,
and
Raj.
you're in a situation, as you just said, and then you think, well, it's a dream, it's an illusion, so why should I bother either way? That child suffering is just part of a dream. I like what you say about you see the mountains. I think you're borrowing from a Zen saying, when you see the mountains as mountains and valleys as. Would you
Yeah.
repeat that?
Yeah.
The mountains and valleys story.
First the seeker sees the mountains, rivers and mountains as real. Then the understanding, the seeker thinks, now I have understood it. Now I've got it. All this is merely a dream. Therefore, the rivers and mountains are not real. Finally, when the understanding is, whatever is unreal compared to what is real. But both real and unreal simply don't exist. Then the mountains and rivers again become real. Real in a dream.
Can I explain my interpretation of that?
Please.
In the course of this understanding going deeper, is that then that seeing the illusion and it leading to inaction starts to translate into action, because then accepting that it is, whether it's real or unreal doesn't really matter anymore. So the ego at that point is not resisting whatever comes up, as you've just said. The distinction is the involvement or the witnessing.
My point is, the ego thinking that I did not act is wrong, is not right. Thinking I should have acted, I feel guilty, that's the involvement causes me guilt.
Exactly.
But if I accept that whatever has happened is precisely what is supposed to happen, with the result that is supposed to follow, you are just out of the thing. You merely witness whatever it is. No involvement. That is the whole point.
Yeah, because more and more I feel less and less involvement. I just watch things from my window at my hotel. I just watch, and I don't. Before I was feeling, oh, that's beautiful, or that's.
Now wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Judgment, or,
No, wait a minute. You are confusing
Yeah.
a biological reaction with involvement. I watch something on the TV. In my in my job had something to do with advertising. So I have had a deep interest in advertising. So because of that conditioning, when I watch the TV advertisement in between the breaks, when I see the advertising, I immediately decide that is a very good advertisement. The other is a stupid advertisement. And one, Shah Rukh Khan, God knows how much they paid him for it. Please, don't be santoshed. Don't be contented. Advertising. Please, don't be contented. Keep on wishing for more. Every possible religion, in every possible, contentment is the ultimate goal. The advertisement, please, don't be contented. Don't be santoshed.
Can I illustrate this with a very specific example? I live every day in my hotel. It's like at first I haven't been back in India for 5 years, and I was not used to, the way.
No, what I'm saying is this is a biological reaction.
Yeah.
This is a biological reaction. Something is good or something is bad. I'm not blaming and condemning anybody. This is what happens. It's a bad advertisement or a good advertisement is a biological reaction. Something is a good advertisement or a bad advertisement. That is a biological reaction.
But guilt is not a biological reaction.
Guilt is essentially egoic. Therefore, judging, I don't say I have judged it. The judging of an advertisement as a good or bad has happened as a biological reaction, happening of a biological reaction. So no, I don't condemn anybody for a bad. The only point is whether it's a good or bad is a biological reaction. So it's direct, the ego is not involved. Until I say something has to be done about it. This man has to be told, don't do this. That is involvement. I see something, there is a biological reaction, which I have no control. Let me put it, if that advertisement was not part of my job, I wouldn't be that concerned whether that advertisement is good or bad. Or I would be involved then. I would be involved in it. Whereas what happens is it's just a biological reaction which is there. Same thing, I was here and I see someone parking the car. Someone parks it beautifully. What is that? You go backwards and forwards and backwards. So I have noticed one is effortless, the other is not. That's all. So I witnessed something without certifying someone as a very good driver or without condemning anybody. That whatever is happening is precisely what is supposed to happen. That is the understanding. But understanding and accepting that whatever is supposed to happen is happening, that can't stop a biological reaction saying, I like this, I don't like this. In other words, I like this or I don't like this is a preference. And every body, mind organism, whether that of an ordinary person or a sage, the body, mind organism does have preferences. So the interesting point is, if the ordinary man has preferences and the sage has preferences, where is the difference? See what I mean?
Yeah.
The answer is simple. The ordinary man, if his preference is not satisfied, he pursues that preference. and invites frustration. But if my preference is satisfied, I enjoy it. I enjoy it thoroughly. But if my preference is not satisfied, I do not pursue my preference. I accept whatever is next available, my second preference or third preference. That is the difference. The sage does not pursue a preference, but if the preference is satisfied, he certainly enjoys it, make no mistake. I mean, I don't say, food, all right, you can give me this food or shit. I don't care. No, I do care, because my preference is there. So if my preference is satisfied, I thoroughly enjoy it, make no mistake. And indeed, in the Hindu philosophy, in Advaita, the sage, enjoyment is called bhoga, bhogi. So an enjoyer is called a bhogi. So in this way, the sage, when he enjoys his preference, he enjoys it so much, he says he is called a mahabhogi, super enjoyer. He is a super enjoyer. In what way is the sage a super enjoyer? In this sense, when he is enjoying something, his thinking mind doesn't intervene and make that enjoyment less. In the ordinary person, his preference is satisfied, he is enjoying his preference, but thinking mind says, this is a lovely food, this is a lovely food. When did I have a food like this before? Am I going to have food like this again? May not. Therefore, I must eat double the quantity. So he eats double the quantity and he suffers.
Okay. About the stage, you talked about the stage of going from involvement and then the next stage of the sense of meaninglessness. And you know,
no, what he said was he got in the sense of acceptance.
Where
and now
things are,
he is at a stage between acceptance and seeing everything as meaningless.
Yes, yes. And you know, like before I was having lots of things I like in life, like I know some little place in France where I like regularly to go to.
Therefore, I'm saying nothing should stop.
No, but the problem is that now, lately, last year and beginning of this year, I feel less and less enjoyment from all the things that we were doing before, where I was getting some rest, some relief. And now I feel that even if I succeed in going somewhere where I know before I was enjoying myself, relaxing, you know, going into nature, now it doesn't. I'm in a stage where it doesn't happen. I can't even watch the full moon with the stars and enjoy it. I'm kind of in a state where there's no kind of pleasure coming from the outside, from something quite flat. And at first I was very shocked by that. And slowly I start to accept that being in that state of not going from getting pleasure from the outside things, I would say. But I'm kind of confused in that state, because sometimes I feel like, am I losing sense of reality of things, you know?
That that is the involvement. Why should Jaya be involved in anything?
Yeah.
Let whatever happens, happen.
Yeah, but sometimes I accept it and I'm totally okay with it, and sometimes I doubt of what's happening, you know, I'm not feeling much.
That's the involvement. Yeah. That is the involvement. And why has the involvement happened? Because it was supposed to happen according to Jaya's destiny.
Because for all my life I've been conditioned to get pleasure from things, from sensual perceptions.
Yeah, that is my point I'm making. All along you said you must not enjoy sensual pleasures. I say by all means enjoy your sensual pleasure. But if that sensual pleasure is not satisfied, don't pursue it. enjoyment of something which is there is not expected. Only if it is not there, if you keep on pursuing it, you are inviting frustration.
And now I am in the position where I try to accept that I'm not so attracted and so much enjoying things from the outside, and I just accept it. And when this acceptance comes, I feel okay. That's okay now, just to be with myself and not having the need of all these things outside.
That is exactly what is meant by contentment.
Yeah.
You are contented with whatever, whether your preference is satisfied or not. If it is satisfied, you enjoy the preference.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you don't pursue it.
Before I was always guilty of not performing or not being involved in some doings, or giving a sense to my life or something. Because right now I have nothing, in my hands, my life, no career, no goals, no things. And I would like to have some good issues about changing this and that, of some motivation to do some things. But I'm in a state where there's nothing. If I really go inside and try to find some motivation, there's nothing. And I just have to surrender that whatever I try to do, I end up by finding there's nothing that comes out right now that wants me to invest myself in something.
So at this point, my comment for Jaya is, please don't think Jaya has achieved something.
Yeah, because I don't feel especially
All I'm
peaceful.
saying is, Jaya should accept what is happening as a happening, and not as something Jaya had achieved. That is the problem. Now I have achieved contentment. That's the problem. You can't achieve contentment. Contentment can only happen.
Let go, in accepting.
Letting go, yeah.
May I share something on that?
Letting go, the sense of doership. Yes, Raju, please.
I found that the energy that went into the seeking, and a lot of energy goes into the seeking. Whatever you see energy as, the energy that makes us act goes into the seeking, goes into the questioning, goes into the counter-questioning of what one has understood, goes into, am I here or am I there? Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I be active? Should I not be active? Anyway, all that energy, excuse me, I found, once the seeking is over, is then available for other things. So in my case, I'm a creative person.
Yeah.
It suddenly manifested in
That is the
creating
point.
things. Somebody else is a writer, they might start writing again. Whatever it is. Businessmen might start.
So the ego tries to force that energy into particular thing. But now the ego, then the energy has full scope to go anywhere. That is why, what is involvement? Involvement means something happens in the moment. Grief happens in the moment. I accept the grief. That moment the grief is gone or anger is gone. Next moment I am open to whatever may come from the source. But if I turn that grief into mourning for the horizontal time, I am not open to anything from the source. Therefore, if I am able to take it from moment to moment, then I let myself be open to the source for whatever may come. Therefore, the less I get involved in life, the more connected I am with the source.
Can I put it in a slightly different way?
If I condemn or blame anyone, that connection gets broken. And that is what happens. So if throughout the day I keep on doing whatever I feel like doing, not blaming and condemning anybody, then I find my connection with the soul never broken. And an unbroken connection to the soul is the ultimate happiness, which is peace of mind. Yes, go ahead. You said.
Just to share my experience, because I think it was about 9 months ago, or maybe under a year, I was sitting here and saying that I found I had no interest. It was boredom. And once that passed, specifically what I found was that when the thought is not there, which questions what is happening. Even questioning, am I bored or am I not bored? Should I do this or should I do that? Then that connection is there.
That is the peace of mind.
When
That
immediately the thought comes, and the thought specifically gets involved in what is happening, the connection is broken.
Therefore, no. The thought comes from the source. Then what the ego is gets involved in that thought, and that involvement is horizontal time, during which your ego is not open to the connection with the source is broken. Same. Okay.
He's been talking of that next stage where you get action, spontaneous action, creative action without any idea of results. When the ego is not expecting anything. That's kind of the last stage. But before that, in my case, I have the feeling that I have to accept that even that stage wouldn't come. You see what I mean?
Yes.
Totally. Yet maybe it will never come back.
Yeah.
You know, action, doing things in this life. Maybe.
In
It
other
goes to
words,
this
you are
acceptance.
saying that you
Yeah.
have to accept that the final understanding, enlightenment may not happen.
Yeah.
Isn't that what
yeah,
you're saying?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And what I am telling is, it really doesn't matter a damn
Yeah.
whether the ultimate understanding happens or not, except to the extent that someone gets the understanding, all he has is peace of mind for the rest of his life. The rest of his life may be 1 month, 1 year, 10 years, 20 years. So the difference is only peace of mind for the rest of the life.
So it doesn't.
But
yeah.
after that, it doesn't matter a damn.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Once the body is dead, the ego gets dissolved, and it makes no difference whether in the ego that is dissolved, enlightenment had happened or not happened. Once the body is dead, the identification in that ego gets dissolved, and it doesn't matter. Before the death of the body, there was enlightenment or lack of understanding in the ego. It just doesn't matter. Once the body is dead.
Yeah, it's the idea of
Therefore,
achievement.
again-
Let go. The idea of achieving anything.
No, that's not the point. Enlightenment happens or not, you're only concerned with the rest of your life. If the enlightenment is there, and it's supposed to be there according to your destiny, you will have peace of mind for the rest of your life. If it is not your destiny, you will not have peace of mind.
Yeah.
But the end of the story doesn't matter. I see, thank you. Yeah. Yes, you were saying something?
No,
No.
May I ask?
Yes,
was going to say
please.
something.
My experience was that when you stop wanting enlightenment, there's also a tremendous release. And then I found recently that what was occurring was actually there's no such thing as enlightenment.
No,
it's a
maybe
concept.
I didn't stop enlightenment. What I decided was, pursuing enlightenment has brought me frustration. Therefore, I shall not pursue enlightenment anymore. I shall pursue happiness. And pursuing happiness, I found, happiness meant peace of mind.
Right.
And I could not have peace of mind unless my relationship with the other is harmonious. And the only way I could have a harmonious relationship with the other is if I am able to accept totally, I am not the doer of any action, the other is not the doer of any action.
Can I ask you this? Then?
Please.
When you realized that enlightenment could not happen because there was no entity for it to happen to, then was that the shifting point to happiness? Focus on happiness?
That is not correct. There is an entity which is seeking happiness, and it is the entity who gets happiness for the rest of his life as peace of mind.
Yes, happiness.
It is the entity who gets happiness. And ultimately my point is that happiness, which is peace of mind, is itself the enlightenment. So what I'm saying is, I pursued enlightenment for 40 years, ended in frustration. After that, I started pursuing happiness for myself and ended up enlightened. Enlightenment being peace of mind.
Can I just illustrate this with something I'm living, experiencing here in my hotel? The Indians are not used to say hello, good morning, thank you, all these things. Even in the restaurants, they just serve, and even if you give tips, you know, they don't make much remark or thank you or anything. And at first, for me, I said, it's not used for me to say hello, to smile, or to say thank you, or to say it was good when it was, you know. And it seems that they don't care. So at first I was kind of being like them, you know, indifferent. But at the end I just felt that I don't like that. I'm not happy with that. And I felt that my conditioning is such that I can't help. I enjoy saying hello in the morning
Fine.
to the people.
Yeah.
But at first I was confused because I was saying hello, smiling, and I was watching myself. That's useless. What I'm doing here, it doesn't mean anything to them. Why I'm doing it? And now I just feel that I can't help doing that, because in fact that makes me feel good.
Feel good.
Yeah.
That is the point.
And even in the bus, I like to watch the person that's next to me and just smile a little bit. And sometimes I feel totally okay. Sometimes I feel, what's the point of smiling? And I feel I just can't help.
You smile because
I like
smiling
it.
makes you feel good.
Yeah, even if it doesn't mean anything or it doesn't last, or maybe that person is just smiling a little for a few seconds and that's all, and go on his way. After that, maybe I feel sometimes there's the thought that comes, it's useless, you know, to give smiley here and there, you know, just being smiling. But I feel that's just the way I want to be. I'm okay with that. In fact, I just can't help.
That is the point. You do precisely what you feel like doing. Why? Because doing that makes you feel good.
And I end up not being
Why
able
is
to
a
resist that.
Why is a miser a miser?
Yeah.
Because not giving makes him feel good.
Yeah.
Why is a generous man generous? Because not giving makes him feel bad. Giving makes him feel good.
So in fact, there's no point of doing things because it's right or wrong, but doing things because you just like to do that because it makes you feel good is it's enough.
And
in itself.
And more important, what makes me feel good and what makes you feel good and what depends on our genes, over which we had no control. Therefore, I say the miser did not choose to be a miser. The psychopath didn't choose to be a psychopath. The saint did not choose to be a saint. And the generous man didn't choose to be a generous man.
And above that, there's no sense of, is it useful to be like that or not? It's totally irrelevant, that kind of
That
question.
is correct. Okay.
Ramesh, sorry. Go ahead. Okay, while you're putting the mic on, can I come back to this, what you just said?
Yes, go ahead.
Because maybe this is a terrible confusion that I have, but I don't see that there's anybody to be enlightened. That the realization that there is no separate entity to be enlightened brings one the happiness, one
No,
the
wait a
thinking.
minute. That's the confusion. What is the final understanding, Rajesh? Not that there is no separate entity. Ramana Maharshi lived for 50 years in that ashram as Ramana Maharshi, a separate entity to whom other entities came for discussion because it made them feel good. Therefore, Ramana Maharshi lived for 50 years as a separate entity. See, therefore the question is, if Ramana Maharshi, as the great sage, lived for 50 years as a separate entity, and the ordinary man lives as a separate entity, the real core question is, What does enlightenment of the understanding mean? The sage lives his life as a separate entity. The ordinary person also lives his life as a separate entity. Where is the difference? That is the core question. And the answer is in the ego of the sage. He lives as a separate entity without the slightest sense of personal doership, accepting whatever happens as something which is supposed to happen according to the will of God. Whereas the ordinary person, in his separateness, there is a sense of personal doership. There is the sense of personal doership which makes all the difference, not being separate.
Is it not also that the sage lives as a separate entity, knowing that the separation is illusory?
Knowing what?
The separation is illusory.
Yes, but still, the separation is illusory. In this illusory life, in this illusory universe, everything is illusory.
Right.
That is the basic acceptance.
So therefore, who becomes enlightened?
Sorry?
Who becomes enlightened?
No.
What becomes enlightened?
No, the ego. Enlightenment happens in the ego and gives that ego peace of mind for the rest of the life.
Yes. So my only question is that, in my experience, the particular entity that one is striving to become enlightened thinks there's something to get, somewhere to get to, realizes that there isn't, and that's what brings the peace of mind.
No. No. The peace of mind is based on a harmonious relationship with the other. At the moment, I don't have peace of mind. Why do I not have peace of mind? Because my relationship with the other is based on suspicion, fear and rivalry. He may do something to hurt me. The only way that can disappear and I can have a harmonious relationship is if I have the total acceptance. If I am going to be hurt, it's because it is my destiny, God's will, cosmic law. If it is not my destiny, no power on earth can hurt me. In other words, I can't hurt the hurter, the other cannot hurt me. No individual is capable of doing anything. That is enlightenment, which is the total surrendering of the sense of personal doership. And that enlightenment, in effect, in life means peace, happiness through peace of mind, sukha shanti. So the ego is involved right up to the last breath. Therefore the separate entity has to remain either as an understanding with or without understanding in the last breath. That, yes.
Yeah. I just start a few things. I just start with first Lance. You know Lance in Australia? You remember Lance from Australia?
Anyway.
Because he asked if you could.
Oh,
pray
he
for
asked
him.
you to ask me something?
Yes.
Okay,
He asked
go ahead.
if you could pray for him.
Right.
He asked, and then Bianca says, "Can you please visit Tiruvannamalai?"
I'm sorry?
Bianca says, "Please visit Tiruvannamalai." She says, "Come to Tiruvannamalai."
Oh, for you?
No, for you.
For me to go to Ramanashram?
Yeah. No, she says, "Please visit please come to Tiruvannamalai." For you to come to Tiruvannamalai.
The answer is, if that going has to happen, it will happen.
Yes.
But at 90, it seems unlikely to happen. Again, you never know.
Ramesh, I was very, very interested in his last question, actually. I've got a few things to say, but I was very interested in his last question because he has the idea that it's just the removal of seeking and that's it. And then you corrected him.
No,
you said
wait a minute, more than that. Removal of the seeker and the seeker.
the seeking and the seeking.
But that is not so.
You're right. I mean, people say accept things as they are, and there's no more problem. But that's not the case. While you're under the misnomer that there are doers, separate doers, you can't accept anything as it is. So unless that idea that there are separate doers is removed, Nothing can be accepted as it is. It's impossible because the misnomer, the core foundation is I'm separate to everything else. So you live in war, and that's the most that has to be removed. And I just wanted to ask you if it is removed, the sense of
What is removed?
that all that anger and hate and shame and fear and everything else.
Wait a minute. The two are totally different. Anger is a biological reaction. Hatred is a purely egoic reaction.
Yes.
Anger arising, the ego has nothing to do with it. But hating someone is me hating you.
Yes. So then hatred, shame, anxiety, whatever comes with the doer, with me and the others. It's all because of me and the others.
Anxiety, no.
Anxiety, no.
Worry, somebody is worrying more than the other, depend on his genes.
Yes.
Anger, worry, grief, all these are emotions based on biological reaction, as depending on the genes and conditioning. Ego has nothing to do with it.
Okay, so
Worrying could happen. Now, fear about pain can happen even in the case of a sage. Nisargadatta had to go something to be done with his tool. So he said, Banseka, is it going to hurt? In the taxi, he said, is it going to hurt? So I said, no, Maharaj, because you will be given an anesthetic which will make you not feel the pain. Fear of pain was there. Fear, anger, all those are emotions which arise in the body-mind organism.
but I asked
And therefore the fear in an ordinary person, a certain standard, in the case of someone like me, which is pain, fear of pain, average, then there are some body-mind organisms so sensitive that the pain may be more. In other body-mind organisms, which are destined to be soldiers, the capacity to bear pain may be much higher. Therefore, what is pain for one, it may not be pain for another, depending on the genes, over which the ego has no control.
I asked you last year, Ramesh. I said if you were going to be crucified tomorrow, would that disturb your peace of mind today? And
No,
your
it
answer-
won't.
No, it won't. But you just said now. But the Maharaj was fearing the
Yes, but it won't, because I know that crucifixion you are talking about may not happen. But if it does happen, I will witness the body-mind organism crying out in pain, Father, why hast thou forsaken me?
Yes.
The body-mind organism crying out in pain.
Just hypothetically
Ramakrishna
speaking.
Paramahansa, Mother, why are you torturing me?
Yeah.
The body-mind organism crying out in pain as a reaction to the pain, which is a biological reaction. Therefore, Jesus Christ watched that body-mind organism crying out in pain. Ramakrishna Paramahansa witnessed his body-mind organism crying out in pain as a happening in a body-mind organism which happened to be his.
Let's say hypothetically, God forbid, but tomorrow you were sure you're going to get crucified. Circumstances happen.
No, then what will happen? I just don't know.
Well, my question to you is today, before tomorrow, would your peace of mind be disturbed?
No, my peace of mind will not be disturbed by accepting whatever is to happen is going to happen, and it may not happen.
But if you have the fear of pain, which I do, which many people do, of course that would disturb your
No,
peace of
fear
mind.
of pain arises only when the eye sees something, one of the senses, when the biological reaction happens, when one of the senses meets its relevant object. I see something, ears hear something. But the fear they are talking about is created by the thinking mind. In which case, doesn't happen in my case. The thinking mind doesn't create the fear.
Right.
Fear in a particular situation is one thing, but this is a creation by the thinking mind. In case this happens, that doesn't happen.
So then, when Nisargadatta Maharaj asked you about the dentist,
Because he was on his way to the
he
dentist.
was on his way, so it wouldn't have bothered him prior. Okay.
He was on his way to the dentist with me.
I've got it. That's what
In the moment.
that's what I've got. That's what I was trying to get at. Now, Ramesh, so you've answered that. So you're sure that your peace would be undisturbed today if tomorrow you're getting crucified? Because that's the litmus test of undisturbable peace. I mean, it really is. There can't be a better litmus test than that.
No, for one reason, the peace of mind is there because whatever happens next moment is beyond my control. Whatever happens thereafter, there will be a biological reaction over which I've never had any control.
Never had any control. Yeah.
That is the point.
Yes.
What will happen, I don't know.
Yes.
And what the eyes will see when, or the ears hear something when, and what the reaction is going to be is a happening over which I have no control. Which may be pleasant or unpleasant.
There's just a couple more. When you talk about the shame and anger, the shame and hatred with the
Shame and hatred is
yes.
is an egoic reaction.
Yeah.
I feel shame because I did something which I shouldn't have done. If I accept that I'm not the doer, no question of shame.
So if that load, as you call it, is a load of shame and hatred is removed, what underneath it, underneath you're saying is the peace that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Under the I, the illusory ego, is yearning for something. It wants something. It's restless for something.
And what it's looking for is happiness.
Right.
All his life the ego lives, pursuing pleasure, thinking he's pursuing happiness.
Yes.
At some point he realizes the happiness I'm seeking has nothing to do with the pleasure. Pleasures come and go. Therefore my happiness which I'm seeking is not to be found in any happening in life. It depends entirely on my attitude towards the other.
Yes. And when that's removed, the happiness was already there. So it's removal of the ignorance, basically, as Ramana
Call
says.
it ignorance or call it the sense of personal doership is the ignorance.
Is the ignorance.
Call it divine hypnosis, call it ignorance, what you call it is immaterial.
And that's very, very deeply ingrained. So that's got to be removed before and the happiness is already there. What I'm yearning for
That
is
is
already
correct,
there.
for the removal of the barrier.
Yeah, like the clouds and the sun is there.
Quite right.
Right. So, and is there? I know this is a funny question. You're not going to like this question, but because this is the main question. You say happiness through peace of mind. Is it possible happiness through? This is corny. Through beauty. Is it possible that like a bhakti is?
Now wait a minute. That is not happiness. That is pleasure in life.
A sense of beauty is pleasure.
That is pleasure in life. Seeing what you consider beautiful gives you pleasure.
Yes.
But what you consider beautiful, someone else may say, is ugly, gives him pain, discomfort.
So that's
Basically, you have to distinguish very clearly between pleasure in life and the basic happiness. That is the most important thing.
when people are in love or infatuated, they feel a sense of beauty that stops them eating, that stops that changes their mood, that changes everything. And if they don't get the object they love, they want to kill themselves. It's such a strong
That is part of the pleasure.
That's part of the pleasure.
And not getting the pleasure is pain.
And all the songs written are about this so-called love. You know, all the
All
songs
that
about
is part of the pleasure.
all that is part of the pleasure. So it is actually happiness through peace. Yes, it's very interesting. This is very interesting because everybody is under the illusion that this great love is going to fill their heart.
Everybody is under the impression that pleasure is happiness.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, yes.
Thank you.
Oh, ma'am, it's there that he wanted to propose to, but
Oh.
I would say, yeah, whatever.
No, wait a minute.
So I would look after it if it was related to that.
Yes.
I seek your clarification on another dimension of what we were discussing. I might be having an understanding that actions of certain kind may or may not happen through me.
Then that is not total understanding.
Okay.
Total understanding, at no time am I capable of doing anything. At no time is the other capable of doing anything.
Okay. And the consequences may or may
Whatever happens,
they are not dependent.
and whatever the consequences happen, have never been in the control of any single individual.
But when I am aware that certain actions will happen through me, I want to be more
Through this body-mind organism, through this three-dimensional object.
there is a feeling that if the motivation is there, while the action is there, I will feel good. So the
What is your question?
question is that if motivation is there,
If motivation, whose motivation? For the ego to do something, that means there is total ignorance. The whole understanding, the ego is incapable of doing anything. And you are talking about motivation for the ego to do something. Okay.
right, it's not fully clear.
All right, go ahead.
Now, as a part of duty, as part of my
Duty, there is no duty.
as a part of my job,
Nobody has any duty.
as a
Because duty depends on you are doing something or not doing something.
as a part of my job, I am supposed to guide the students whether they are performing some job or not, or whether they are missing some classes. So as you said, you observe an advertisement and say that this is good or bad. I observe that the student is wasting his
We are
time.
talking about totally different matters. You are talking about what to do in the job.
Yeah, because
You are
that's daily
talking
living.
about doing something in the job, and I was talking about what I see on the TV. Doing your job is precisely what Lord Krishna told Arjuna. What? Do your job to the best of your ability, do whatever you think you should do it as well as you can, and that is all you can do. What happens thereafter has never ever been in anybody's control. So when your job is concerned, do whatever you feel like doing at any moment, with the understanding what happens has never been in your control. So again, when your job is concerned, in any situation, do whatever you feel like doing.
So in a way, we can be more motivated if we are not
Motivated.
okay, without obstacles of any kind.
In any situation, you are free to do whatever you like, with motivation, without motivation, but whether it is moral or immoral, whether it is legal or illegal, you have the total freedom to do whatever you want in a given situation. The result of it has never been in your control. Therefore, do whatever you feel like doing and see what happens.
I'll take one more minute.
Go ahead, go ahead.
As he was involved in creating eco-friendly architecture. From my job
He
point
was
of
not
view,
involved. he considered his job.
My job here is to train students.
Therefore, do whatever you can to do a good job. Where is the problem? You are free to do at any time.
But I don't feel like doing it. Because if I know that
Yes, then
it may or may not happen for them.
then it means you are supposed to feel what you feel, and that feeling that you have will produce whatever is supposed to be produced. Whatever is going to happen through this instrument will happen. Whatever the cause, whatever the result. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to what Raghavan said. Yeah. Well, my glasses.
Yes, Moria. Moria.
Yeah, that's when Raghavan was talking about this concept, and I remember years ago he used to tell a joke, and then I'll make my comment. He said there were 3 people that used to meet every Sunday, 3 professors or something. And one night, every Sunday, one came and said, God came to me last night and he asked me, do you want total wisdom or total happiness or something like that? And of course the other 2 said, hey, tell what did you choose? And he said, of course I chose total wisdom. So tell us. And then he said that was the wrong choice because now there is no one to enjoy. That was a joke he used to tell for many years. Okay, forget the joke now.
No, there was no one to do the enjoying.
Okay, so
The enjoyment happened, and purely because there is no one enjoying, doing the enjoying, the thinking mind is not there. Pure enjoyment. Pure enjoyment is what makes him super enjoyer. Super enjoy really means super enjoyment, total enjoyment, without the thinking mind interfering with the intensity of enjoyment.
okay, now conceptually good. Conceptually, since the ego, all we are is the ego. At the same time, the ego is just a thought, identifying with this body-mind organism. So really, as enlightenment happens, then it is like a dissolution of a thought or a sense of doership.
Dissolution of the sense of personal
doership. And then the thought is just, the separation is there, but
it is like the remnants of a burnt road.
Oh, you had another analogy one time, but okay. Yeah,
Remove the sense of personal doership, and this rope is like the remnants of a burnt rope.
So literally, I think, I don't know if that's what you meant, there is really, it's just a reflection, but at that point there is awareness that it's a reflection, but not a real rope. Because like a burn rope is like...
More, yeah. What it means is, this separation that one feels is based almost entirely on doership. Once the doership is gone, that separation is so ephemeral, so like a remnants of a burnt rope, that it doesn't really matter. It is needed only for the mechanism of daily living to happen. For mechanism of daily living to happen, there has to be an ego as a separate entity, doing or apparently doing whatever he or she feels like doing. For that doing to happen, for the mechanism of daily living to happen, the separate entity, the ego, has to be there. I repeat, for the mechanism of daily living to happen, the ego as a separate entity has to be there, apparently doing whatever is supposed to happen. Okay? Yeah.
What advice would you have for someone?
I'm sorry?
What advice
Yeah.
would you have for someone
Yeah.
who is so frustrated by her own patterns and addictions that she's being led to suicide, to thoughts of suicide? I have a friend who is in this particular condition. she's noticed certain patterns that came up because of her conditioning with her father leaving and things like that, and this is leading to patterns in relationships with men, and she's becoming suicidal. Like 2 days ago I got a call from her saying she wants to kill herself, and she's sitting and staring at a bunch of sleeping pills.
Yeah.
So what advice would you have in a situation?
For her, no.
Ah.
But I do have advice for you. For you, the way that person is going to die, the way that body-mind organism is going to die, has already been predetermined. The moment a conception takes place, everything is predetermined. Whether that conception will be born as a baby or it will be destroyed and not born as a baby has already been predetermined. So if according to what is predetermined the baby is born, then how long the body will last, and whatever happens to the body at any moment has already been predetermined. Similarly, when the body is supposed to die, in what manner the body will die, natural death or accident, murder or suicide, has already been predetermined. Therefore, if it has been predetermined and the destiny of that person is not to commit suicide, suicide will not happen. But if it is suicide is to happen, suicide will happen. If suicide is not to happen, it will not happen.
And of course, I may exercise my free will knowing that.
That's right. No, whatever you can do that. You can do whatever you want to stop her from committing suicide.
Knowing that it might or might not work.
Knowing
Yeah.
that the result has never been in your control.
And in the same way, she may do whatever she can to break those patterns.
Indeed.
knowing that the patterns.
Indeed. Therefore, you are free to give her any advice that you think you should give.
See, in my own case, it brings the analogy of cigarettes.
Yeah.
I'm about to light up a cigarette, which
Yeah.
I know is not helping me in the long run.
Yeah.
And sometimes, with that analogy, you can say, hey, if you're meant to smoke this, you're smoking it. Or you can
I'll tell
try
you a joke about this.
Yes, tell me.
A friend was a smoker, so a friend of his said, Jack, why do you keep on smoking? Do you know ultimately it will kill you?
Yeah.
So he said, ultimately, who is in a hurry? Ultimately, everybody is going to die. Who is in a hurry? Anyway, yes, you were saying?
Who's in a hurry to die? Or
Yeah. Therefore, ultimately to kill me.
Yeah.
I'm not in a hurry to die now.
Yeah, but that's what the act is doing. I mean, in the sense that, I don't know if you noticed, but for the last month and a half, there was something that happened. I was
About
in-
smoking.
No, not about smoking, about life. Like, I really did, I tried an experiment once on a day of complete frustration.
Yes.
And I said, let's accept everything that Rameshji teaches you. So all of this craziness that's supposed to happen is meant to happen.
Yes.
And it was so delightful that I went from wanting to bang my hand on the table to laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing. And ever since it's been like that. And then at other times I came in here with questions, sitting, waiting for an answer, and the answer just happened, so I never asked the question.
That is the advantage of a satsang. People call me, Ramesh, can I come and see you? So I said, yes, we'll arrange it, but first I suggest that you attend the satsang. What happens satsang is not only are your questions answered, but you see a lot of other questions being answered. That is the advantage of the satsang.
Still, for me it becomes that question, there's still one question that lasts, sort of.
Go ahead.
And sometimes it gets answered on its own, and that
Yeah.
comes from the answer you gave me earlier, that it's not this ego, this body-mind organism controlling the life, it's life controlling this body-mind organism.
Yeah.
and sending it in whatever direction it's
not
meant to go.
controlling this body mind organ. No. Life is happening through this body mind organ as an instrument,
As
like a robot. The robot means genes and conditioning.
But when I do go to light up that cigarette,
Yeah.
there is an element of choice involved.
Yes.
And that choice also is not controlled by me. What I'm choosing is already been chosen or is being chosen through me.
And whatever you choose, half a second before you actually do it.
So
that is the responsible research and brought it out.
So the most effective way of choosing in that sense is recognizing that you have the freedom without any control on the end result.
On that basis, do whatever you want to do. That is why in a total freedom. Total freedom to do whatever you want, knowing that the result has never been in your control. Therefore, choosing and making a decision and doing does not become a very laborious matter. Otherwise, that itself is an enormous amount of stress. Do I do this, or do I do that, or do I do nothing, not do nothing? See what I mean?
I know exactly what.
Therefore, at that moment, and again, you will do precisely what your genes and conditioning will make you do. Either you will make a considered decision, or you will toss a coin. Either way, you will do something. And that is precisely what is supposed to happen, together with the result. The whole thing, therefore, life becomes so simple, no mental stress. Ultimately, what is peace of mind? No mental stress. I'm never uncomfortable with myself, I'm never uncomfortable with the other. And the stress, mental stress, is based almost entirely on your sense of personal doership and your thinking mind, creating imaginary fears, hopes, ambitions in the future which had never happened.
But what is it that led you to such deep belief in a predetermined universe?
It was there all the time. For me, it was there all the time. But later I came to know that the physicists and the mathematicians have come to the same conclusion on their calculations. But I had this feeling right from the beginning. So it was a good confirmation that the physicists and the mathematicians also, not as a concept, but as a fact based on their calculations. Okay. Yes, please.
And you mean that if you, assuming you like chocolate and chocolate is there in the other corner of the room,
Yeah.
you wouldn't get up and pick it up?
No, what I mean is you are free to do whatever you like.
But when you say the sage doesn't pursue...
Now wait a minute, no, this is the important thing.
Yeah.
You are free to, and I'll tell you what happened yesterday. Just here, Singh got up and left. Singh told someone here, I think Maurya, someone else, he said, I'm going up, you can take that chair. But before she could get up, someone here went and sat in that chair. Typically, you see what I mean? He gets up, on the way he tells someone, look, that chair is empty, you can occupy it. But before she could do it, someone here goes and sits there. She doesn't know. And she, clear example. What exactly happened, even in the moment, nobody knows.
But what is this idea that the sage doesn't pursue desires?
No, I'll give you an example. Suppose I say, this is a Sunday morning. I would love to have a glass of beer. So I go to the place with the total acceptance. I had told the servant to always have at least 2 bottles of beer in the fridge. So I open the fridge door, no beer. Then what do I do? What I would do is, if the beer is not there, something else will be there. So if my first preference is not satisfied, I would take whatever is available. But pursuing beer, if I didn't have the understanding, what would I do? I would, no, I want beer. I've decided I want beer. So what do? I say, all right, I don't have the beer. My neighbor may have it. So I go to, I know he keeps beer, he likes beer. So I go to the neighbor and say, can I borrow a bottle of beer? He says, Ramesh, it's funny. I also want, but I'm out of stock. Then I decide, well, there's a shop just round the corner. I'll go and buy a bottle. Then I remember, Sunday, the shop is closed. Frustration. Pursuing a desire means inviting frustration. I may get it, I may not get it. Therefore, the difference between a sage's body-mind organism has a preference, exactly as the ordinary person's body-mind organism has a preference, a list of preferences. But the difference is that the ordinary man usually pursues his preferences, and sometimes by pursuing he may get what he wants. But many times, pursuing something, he may not get it and is inviting frustration. That is, the ego does the pursuing. The ego of the sage accepts if the preference is satisfied, he enjoys it thoroughly. If it is not satisfied, he accepts that according to God's will, cosmic law, and his destiny, his preference is not supposed to be satisfied at that moment. He takes it next, whatever is available. Okay?
Yeah.
Ramesh,
Yes.
where you want something that you know that it's not good for your health. For example, beer or chocolate.
Yes, whatever,
or anything.
yes.
Yeah. Are you kind of challenged by how should I take it or not? How is it happening for you from your point of perspective when you are attracted by something but you know afterwards you're going to feel pain or something like that?
Then I do whatever I feel like doing, knowing that the result is not in my control.
Even if it's pain that you're going to feel, there's not something like
Then I won't do
there's
it.
a challenge of not doing it.
Then I will not do it. Do I do it or do I decide whether. So the question is, your question. At the moment it may give me pleasure,
Yeah.
but a little later it may give me pain.
Yes.
So what will I do in that particular situation? I don't know. I do not know what will happen. It will be happening. Whether I choose to go and get pleasure and then pain, or not do it and miss both the pleasure and the pain, is a happening which will happen precisely the way it is supposed to happen, based on my destiny, God's will, cosmic law.
And if it's something that you know that previously it has made you sick,
Therefore, it is a happening. You see the question that in a given situation, what will you do? That's the question.
yeah.
Answer is, I don't know. I don't know what I do because I am not the doer. I don't know what will happen. Whatever happens will be according to my destiny, God's will, cosmic law.
And
According to my destiny, I am supposed to suffer pain. Pain will happen.
And about the effort of the challenge, is it something that happens to you that you say to yourself, or maybe I shouldn't drink that beer because it's not good for me, and asking you some kind of effort to let go something you like because you know it's not good for you. Does it happen, this kind of challenge? That it happens to me when I have to choose between too much chocolate and just the right amount.
What you are talking is, in a given situation, if there are alternatives, what do I do?
Yeah.
According to my genes and conditioning, I make a considered decision. But someone else may not be able, he will toss a coin. But neither of us has any control over what the result is going to be.
And in the specific case of, you said that you in the Pink Book, it said that in your daily activity you like to exercise yourself. Is there some kind of days where you feel, today I don't really want to exercise, but you go into a process of deciding that I'm going to do it because it's good for me? Does this kind of thing happen to
I
you?
wait and see what happens. Sometimes I'll force myself, sometimes I will not force myself. I'll just wait and see what happens.
So how do you experience that sense of effort? It's not frustrating for you to renounce some comfort of not doing anything?
All I do is see what happens. Now I'll tell you, in the morning, for half an hour I take a walk, pickpocketing, not really. So I start, and then after a while I feel like resting. So I sit in my rocking chair, stop for a while, then I again feel like starting. I start again. And my experience is sometimes I walk the half hour without any break. Sometimes I walk and have 3 breaks.
And there's not the intervention of the thinking mind that come and say you should be doing
that is the
more
point.
practice.
That is the point.
John, sorry, can I just say to John, because you, Thomas, I asked you the same question, and you actually said to me, like with the chocolate thing, because I asked her, I mentioned this, is if the guilt or the gambling or anything, this is if the guilt came up before, you wouldn't eat the chocolate, or you wouldn't gamble, or you wouldn't, if the guilt comes up in that moment, it would stop. Because I kept saying I was gambling, and he said, if the guilt comes up, you wouldn't have done. It comes up after the event, not before the event.
You mean that if the thought comes in your mind that it could be good for me to exercise, the motivation will be there spontaneously. You don't have to fight with yourself to force you into doing something you don't really like doing.
So I do precisely what I think I should do. More accurately, whatever I feel I should do. And that feeling I have, do one thing or the other, is a happening which will happen according to my destiny. If my destiny is to have pleasure, I'll have pleasure. If my destiny is to have pain, I'll have pain.
So there's no challenge around the decision-making process about should I not?
No. There's no challenge, no.
Doesn't the guilt serve a purpose? Or does the guilt serve a purpose?
Maybe God does, but I don't have a purpose.
No, guilt, the guilt itself.
I know whether that guilt has any purpose or not has already been predetermined by God. I have nothing to do with it. The happening is a guilt. Guilt is a happening. What result that happening is going to have another happening, God knows. Guilt is a happening.
Is it possible to believe in a probabilistic universe and still come to peace?
In fact, I do believe in a ballistic universe.
In a probabilistic universe?
Yeah, whatever is supposed to happen is going to happen.
But your input is changing the probabilities of it.
My input, Apurva, there is no my input.
Well,
that is the whole point. I can only witness whatever is happening without anybody putting in any input. Everything is happening according to God's will, cosmic law. Nobody puts in any input. And that is the divine hypnosis. I am putting in something, the other is putting in something. The other is putting in more effort. I feel guilty for myself and envious about the other. That means unhappiness for the ego. Yeah, Murthy.